Welcome to our fourth hosted podcast. Today we've got Julia. I'm super excited to have her on today. We've had a few conversations, and one thing I really like about her and her agency is that they're actually all content creators and paid media specialists. So they have this cool hybrid, like almost like the quintessential creative strategist, right? Being from both ends of the spectrum. So Julia and I have been talking a lot in the background about what's going on in the beauty space, beauty playbook, incorporating SaaS and more creative strategies into workflows. And so I wanted to bring her on to talk specifically about how to succeed within the beauty niche. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Julia to give a quick introduction before we dive in.
I'm so excited to be here. Okay, so Ami is a TikTok creative and marketing agency, full service, and we only work with Sephora and Ulta Beauty brands, but we do everything for them. So everything from posting, scheduling, content creation, platform management, community management, all the way to paid media, to influencer and affiliate. So everything that touches TikTok, we handle that for the beauty brands.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's like, I like how you guys have drilled down into your niche and you're still thriving and scaling within there. Like the team is awesome. The brands you're working with are awesome. I want to dive a bit more into your background. I think you're underselling yourself a bit. I know you told me like, you created content and you were doing a lot of social media management before this. I'd love to understand a bit more on your journey into why you created Ami, sorry, Ami, and then why you guys focused on this angle, for beauty and Sephora and Ulta brands.
Yeah, well, personally, I've just myself have always been into beauty. That was my expertise, and I just always dove into it, knew every brand, every new product launch, so that just felt natural. But yeah, about 4 years ago, created content. TikTok came out, started creating content myself. My TikToks back then are not what they are now. It's the 10,000 hours. And it was working for brands. And so, we got more and more brands coming to us to just unlock TikTok. I think the biggest problem is that the volume of content creation they have to make, it's so hard to keep up with. And then, hired more content creators, built a network of content creators, built a media team. I myself also led the media buying for a long time and ended up with an agency on my hands. I'm very thankful.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love the organic buildup. I love that approach. I feel like I see a lot of agencies and I see a lot of people in this space who've never actually created content themselves. And we're working with content creators, right? So there needs to be that empathy to truly connect with like the medium you're using to like drive performance, right?
Yeah,
so,
I think it's the most important thing that you have to be a content creator to really understand the platform. It's so easy to say, from an outside perspective, do this or do that, but until you've made content yourself, you can't really understand what it takes, and it's a really difficult. I think that the thing about content creation, it looks so effortless, and that's kind of what our job is meant to be, to look like we just filmed it off the cuff and it's effortless. But there's a lot of thought, there's a lot of strategy, there's a lot of, we make sure everything down to the props and the nails and everything looks perfect. And I say perfect, I want to qualify, TikTok's never perfect, but it all looks, there's a purpose behind everything. So yeah, content creation is harder than it looks.
It's so hard. I created a TikTok shop affiliate account here at Yuka, and God, my content is ugly compared to what you guys are creating. And I have so many drafts in my backlog, but guys, there's a lot that goes on behind the scene. Content creating is tough. In the beauty niche specifically, I feel like you just have to be so on point and have everything super aesthetically done. I know TikTok is a little bit more raw, but props to what Ami's doing there. I do want to dive a bit more into, I guess, beauty strategies. First, want to just get your take. I know TikTok is about majority beauty brands, right? That's where a majority of the GMV is coming from. Could you talk a little bit more about, why is beauty the dominant niche on TikTok?
I think because beauty is so visual and TikTok is so visual, so it goes hand in hand. I also think TikTok is such a everybody's connecting with everybody, and it's so across the nation. I think when you look at something like Meta, it's just friends connecting with friends, but TikTok, it's like strangers connecting with strangers. And so, as a woman, you have this now access to this pool of all these women across the entire nation who have all their own little beauty tips and tricks and secrets, and you get to share all of that with them, all of the, even from makeup artists or dermatologists and skincare expert. And it's just unlocked this whole world of knowledge behind beauty. So that's super exciting. But again, it's very visual. So before afters or seeing a swatch of makeup, I think that's what makes TikTok so special for beauty brands. And I always say to beauty brands to treat their TikTok like it's a storefront, like it's almost like a retail part of your retail strategy, right? Like you have a retail specialist in the store who's helping customers find the right products for them. Treating your TikTok that way, helping your customers or your audience in this case find the product that's right for them, explaining why it's special, showcasing it, walking them through it, giving them a reason that they need it or why they should buy it or why it would just be a helpful addition in their makeup bag in their bathroom, whatever it is.
So is that more of like Ami's approach to like emphasize like a retail feel to like the social commerce like shopping experience?
Yeah, I think a lot of people approach TikTok thinking that it has to be trends and memes and or earlier in the early years dancing, and I think that was it's obviously still relevant, and you still do want to follow trends and memes, and that is an impactful strategy. But I think every brand is trying to hop on every trend, and sometimes it gets oversaturated. And I think a more like evergreen strategy outside of those trends and memes that maybe build engagement, but they don't really showcase why you should buy the product. So I think a more evergreen strategy for brands to take on TikTok is, yes, build community, do all of the fun things, but also take it as an opportunity to have a really organic way of showcasing your products as if you were in a store and you were in a Sephora and you were swatching it on the back of your hand and somebody was telling you why this moisturizer is really good or this blush is perfect.
Yeah, no, that's super important. And like it's been a while since like I've gone to a mall and like I've tried on products and like, I guess
Yeah.
for me it'd be like getting a spray of like, cologne on my hand, right? And it's definitely hard to like replicate that experience online. But we do have we do have other levers you can pull. I guess going to Ami's approach, right? Can we dive a bit more deeper into like how to curate that experience for a lot of the brands you work with?
Like the experience overall of like,
Yeah. Like, I guess, how do you guys bucket your services? Like, what do the tactics look like? Like, what does setup look like when you're getting started? First off.
I mean, I like to kind of look at a TikTok strategy. I always say in the consults, like a pyramid, essentially. The base of that pyramid, the foundation that makes everything else drive forward is the content. I think the content is the thing that, because content is king on TikTok, makes everything else efficient across media buying, across affiliate, whatever else you're going to do. So I think the base of that pyramid being your content strategy, making sure you're posting, daily and consistently, and you're testing content. And we'll get into this, but both, looking at, what does the data tell us works historically, but also trying new things and not being afraid to kind of experiment. So the content is the base, and then you layer on the paid ads. And I would say, I always tell clients, we can give you the most beautiful content ever, but if you don't put paid behind it and leverage it with the right paid media strategy, that content just sits there and nobody sees it and doesn't go anywhere. I think the idea that there's this magical, sometimes it happens that there is this organic virality for beauty brands, but I think that is, once in a blue moon that happens by a stroke of luck. I think a more consistent building of the platform does require that you have a strong paid media strategy to back up all of that content you're producing. And then from there, I would say, you're building awareness and community. You have your content, it's really strong. You have your media buying strategy, it's building awareness, it's reaching whatever goal you're trying to reach. And then you use influencer and affiliate marketing to drive even more, trial, awareness, community around it. And then there's a couple of other things I would say are at the top of the pyramid that are extras that are just nice to have. But the content is the thing that drives everything forward. That coupled with the paid media strategy.
Interesting. Interesting. So it sounds like you guys are building up towards an awareness and community strategy, right? From content and paid. Is that approach more specific to the beauty niche, or are you seeing that across in general, like for TikTok shop brands?
I think I think it's important when on TikTok for a beauty brand to not just go onto the platform and immediately ask the user for a sale because they don't know you. So I think it is really important to see TikTok as an upper funnel tool, a brand discovery tool, and to build that out before you go then and ask people for a sale. So I think, and it's important, I think, to do everything holistically, right? So, of course, on TikTok Shop, we're working to drive GMV, of course, but I think that's an easier endeavor when you have built upper funnel brand awareness. And same thing is true in paid media. Like the CPA will go down as we work on the upper funnel. So I think it's really important to take a full funnel strategy for beauty brands and not just go onto the platform and say, hey, buy my product, and there is no community and nobody knows why they should.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I really like that approach. I think like a lot of people forget that TikTok is a content platform and content first platform. And a lot of the signals that the algorithm acts upon are coming primarily from content.
Yeah.
So it is important to layer in that base of the pyramid. I do find that a lot of brands have trouble getting started with content. There's a lot of like upfront costs involved.
Mhm.
There's a lot of like uncertainty on what to create, what creative angles to take. What are like some common obstacles that you've seen brands come into when they're trying to start their preliminary content push?
Yeah, a volume. I think just making content at scale. Usually beauty brands hire one person in-house and expect them to, brief the content, source the content, make the content themselves, post it, and on multiple different channels. And that's just, we know now that's not a one-person job. There wouldn't be an agency for it if that was a one-person job. So I think, the hardest part for brands is knowing that they have to show up consistently, and not just consistently, but have a variety of content. The viewer now wants to see the same makeup product on different skin tones, different hair types. They also want to see different types of content, from face content and application to what we call product content, which is maybe a swatching or an unboxing, or a flat lay, a lifestyle piece where it's like almost product placement within a lifestyle. So the sheer breadth of content that you need and volume is so hard for brands when they're juggling so many things. So for them, I say, it's nice to think that you could do it in-house, but it's quite impossible. It's kind of a myth. You do need some sort of external partner to help you with that content to do it at scale, because a piece of content here and there doesn't really move the needle for you.
Yeah, 100%. Breadth and depth of content and getting started, launching and building a brand presence, like that's incredibly tough, and fully
Yeah.
aligned on that. I guess if we were to break that down into its components, like, can you elaborate a bit more on like what the variety, like how to plan for that variety and scale? Like, what are the moving pieces involved?
Yeah, well, on our end as the agency, we have a lot of like we have a lot of different sophisticated like process and procedure to get that content. I mean, we do a ton of we must be the most organized team out there, like spreadsheets, and we track different creators and we talk to the brands about what they're looking for. There's so much from, we would sort of serve as the middleman between our pool of creators that we've trained.
Mm,
They're all trained. We have agency to creator trainings, we have brand to creator trainings. And then the brand. So the brand will tell us what their overall goal is. And it's kind of our job as the agency to know then what to brief the creator to get to that overall goal, and what types of content are needed to map onto the paid media strategy. So if
got it.
you think about like we're doing a full funnel strategy, a different piece of content is going to serve upper funnel as it is lower funnel. Those are two different types of content. And too often brands just use whatever they have lying around on hand. But the benefit of an agency and content at scale is that you can say, well, we know that this type of content works well in upper funnel. We know that this one works well in lower funnel. How much of each type of content do we need? And then working with our creators to commission that. And so every piece of content we make has some sort of purpose. whether it's, community building or it's actually driving a purchase. Every piece of content has like thought and purpose and intention behind it.
Yeah, that's super important to like segment between goals with your marketing strategy, right? For upper funnel content, what are the things you're seeing that works well for upper funnel content? Like, what are some elements you see there that might be different than that lower funnel content you're talking about?
I think upper funnel content is where you see, that is the good place for the trends, the memes, all of the community participation. I think lifestyle pieces are unexpectedly really great. And by lifestyle pieces, I mean, you're placing the product within the context of somebody's lifestyle. Like the product's aesthetic, but like what purse is this person wearing? What clothes are they wearing? What perfume are they wearing? What does their bedroom look like? And placing the product next to other products within that product same category. So they kind of create a lifestyle. So those lifestyle pieces, those do really well, and very aesthetic things do well in upper funnel content. Versus lower funnel content, that's really where we're saying, here's the before after, here's what this product did, here's why it's different, here are the ingredients. Taking more of that like retail specialist approach on the lower funnel content, but the upper funnel can be that humor, the memes. But I think the challenge for brands is balancing the two, right? Because if you do too much of the lifestyle, the trends, the memes, that kind of a thing, that's where brands run into problems where they come to us and say, well, we can't turn TikTok into a performance channel. But on the flip side, if you do too much of the lower funnel, that's where brands feel like, well, we're driving these ads, but we don't really have community, and our CPAs are really high because they're not driving the brand awareness in the community to support a low CPA, a high return.
Yeah. For those of you who might not be familiar, CPA is cost per acquisition. So at scale, right, TikTok is a great channel because you're able to acquire the customer a lot more organically and get lower CPAs through influencer and community versus just running paid, where you might run into traditionally higher CPAs that are benchmarked. No, Julia, those are great points. I feel like a lot of people start with lower funnel content, only think it doesn't work. Then they go to upper funnel content, and then they start getting good content, but they run into conversion issues, like you're saying.
Yeah.
They start with the get ready with me's. They start with the day in my life. I've talked to a couple of creators, and they're like, they'll go and do like a dance routine and then come back and put on their product, right? But I really like the integrated approach. I see a huge deficit in like integrated postings with influencers. If it's influencer campaigns, brands are hesitant to pay them and show other products in the setting. But I think complementary products work super well.
It's really important because people are really, you see this with the most popular beauty products, they're buying into a lifestyle. And so it seems counterintuitive to put another brand's products in your ad, but that's what makes it feel organic and native. And then the person is more likely to say, wow, I like that brand's products and this brand is adjacent. I want to join this brand's community as well. So I think the way to go about it on TikTok is you really want to be part of the community versus maybe on Instagram, you wouldn't put the other brand's products in there. But I think TikTok is just so much more organic than that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. On Instagram, I find that there's like a very curated aesthetic.
Yeah.
TikTok is a bit different. So going back to this concept of integrated media, right? Or integration posts like with other kinds of products. I think it's a very new concept for a lot of sellers. If someone were to go learn about best practices for, finding creators or looking into content stylists for more integrated approaches, where would you start?
Looking for an integrated approach?
Yeah, like integrated posting type, like going and doing research for creators who do that sort of thing, or learning how to create that content brief for that sort of content style.
I think a great way to go about it is to actually, first off, I tell everybody you should be a user of TikTok yourself. That is like step one. I mean, you can't make a TikTok unless you yourself are consuming TikTok. That's square one. But I think, we've spoken about this before, like going into the search engine of TikTok and finding those keywords and looking at high performing content. And maybe not even looking at your competitors because maybe your competitors don't even have a great TikTok, and not even looking up your own brand because maybe you don't have any brand awareness. But, if you're in body care, you might search the term body care in TikTok and look at what creators are making and what's high performing, and what people are engaging with and what they're saving. I like to use bookmarks as a metric for what people are saving to come back to later as a metric of purchase intent. And that can't be bought with media buying, right? You can buy the views and all of the followers, but you can't really buy the bookmarks. So bookmarks is a great metric of like organic purchase intent. And so you can look and see, like, if every piece of content with a high amount of bookmarks is about an everything shower, that's a good place to start your content creation, is to say, well, maybe we should make a piece about an everything shower. And you sort of look through, what are the hooks? How are they talking about it? What are the similarities in this content to kind of guide the content creation effort?
Yeah. When you guys first told me about bookmarks, I was like, I love that approach. It's like the best signal for like intent to purchase or consideration, right? Because TikTok is such an awareness platform. So
yeah, and we use a sort tool. Chrome has a sort tool that you can go on any TikTok page from any brand and rank it by the bookmarks from highest to lowest. And that's a great way not only for your brand, but to look at your competitor brands and see like what content for everybody is doing really well. And then you'll know by the bookmarks that it wasn't doing well because it was necessarily sparked, but because people actually saved it to come back to it, so that because it provided some sort of value to them.
Yeah, no, that's great. Because like you're saying, there's a lot of like false growth signals with like GMV or average views that can be inflated via Spark ads. And you can't actually see that when you're going and doing TikTok research on the search bar. So you do need that North Star metric. I want to pivot a little bit from this content strategy into media buying, right? When you're looking at content, for your media buying campaigns, like how do you go from this level of the pyramid to the next level of the pyramid? Like, what are you bringing with you to that next level?
Well, I think really, really important to understand when you're integrating the paid with the content. So our teams, we have several different teams across the agency, but just strictly speaking about our creative team and our paid media team, super integrated in that, the creative team will will make the content, post the content, and obviously we'll monitor for organic performance. The paid team then will take that content, run it through wherever it needs to go in the funnel, collect all the data about, how many conversions, audience, age, gender, all of the things, take all of that information and then communicate it back to the creative team. So then the creative team now is not just blindly throwing spaghetti at the wall. They have a North Star that the paid team has provided them of what's working, who should we be focusing on? Who should we be speaking to? What type of content should we make again? What type of elements of the creative should we keep in the next round of briefing? And so it's really, when people ask me, what's the secret sauce? It's really the communication between the paid and the creative teams. And I think too often you have beauty brands who they'll hire a performance agency, they'll hire a content agency. Those two agencies don't talk to each other. And the brand doesn't always do a great job of helping them bridge the gap, because they're so, their bandwidth is so limited. And so I think that's the reason why from the start we built AMI to be all of those things under one roof, to be a content agency, a performance agency, an affiliate agency under one roof. And the client can totally walk away and the machine keeps running because our teams internally are all talking with each other and communicating daily. And it keeps making the creative better, and we keep having better and better direction over time as we have more learnings from the paid team. So that integration is super important. And I also think it's super important that people are knowledgeable about roles that are not just their own, right? So we have our creative team who we have had them become certified as TikTok media buyers, even though they'll never do media buying, but we had them become certified, which I think we must be the only agency who have creative people and creators who are oddly certified as TikTok media buyers. But I wanted that because I want them to have that knowledge of how it works, so that when they go to create content, they're creating it with mission and purpose. And then same thing with the paid team. Our paid team creates content from time to time. And again, I wanted that because I think you need to make content yourself to understand what it takes, to understand what you're looking for, to understand how to put it into the funnel. So I think having our teams go above and beyond their role and learn the other one's role is even more so helps with that integration.
Yeah, no, that's super great. And that's why I wanted to bring you on because like that approach is like so cool. Like a lot of people work with creative teams and there is a tough integration and communication process. I think when it comes to paid, people might be like overly analytical and KPI focused, and then
Yeah.
creative feels a bit more abstract. For those brands that haven't integrated it, as well as you guys have, what are some like common obstacles you typically see when it comes to getting these teams to talk to each other?
I think, it's it's very classic. It's like you have the people on the performance side, and like you said, they're extremely, analytical and data driven, which is not bad. It's lovely, but the problem is not every piece of content can be data driven. There's a balance between, you know, and it clients, it's so funny to hear them ask this from us all the time. On one hand, they'll come to us and say, tell us what works and let's replicate what works, and we'll just keep replicating the thing that works. And what does the data tell us? In the same call, they might say, but I want to do something completely new and different and novel and something that's never been done before, which by definition has no data behind it, right? So you're like, which one do you want? Do you want to do it based on what we know or what we don't? And so I think the creatives, they're very much like, they're quick to move on to the next thing, right? They did it. They don't want to replicate. They always want to create something new. So they're quick to go to the next thing. On the flip side, the performance people, they don't want to do something new. They want everything to have a data-driven reason. And so I think my role has been, even within our own agency, like balancing that, and especially on teams, of trying to have both perspectives there, trying to leave room for us to make something new that hasn't been done, but also listening to the data and saying like what worked and how can we integrate that into the next round of content. And so I think with brands, all too often you get a performance marketer who has never made content, and they're great at what they do, but they don't take enough creative risk, and then you have them not communicating improperly with the creative team, who knows nothing about media buying and who is just making whatever they feel like making without knowing the strategy behind it, how it's being leveraged with the ad dollars behind it.
Yeah, no, that's super important. I'm glad you guys are able to facilitate that discussion. Well, I know things can get heated between different teams at times. Do you have any examples on like how you facilitated a discussion between teams, whether at a me or consulting for other agencies?
I think every time we bring on a client, it is sort of a learning curve for them, because it's not only is it a different platform, right? And they have to understand how this platform works, and it's so different than the other platforms, but it's also a different way of working. And it is a learning curve to understand that our paid media team does understand creative and our creatives do understand paid media. But when it works, it like really works. So you have examples like, I'll shout them out because I love them as a client, but you have examples like RMS Beauty, and they, you see this where they have this content that does really well, and they have the content of Rosemary, and then you integrate it with, a full funnel campaign, and suddenly a TikTok that is at, 50,000 views, that's great organically, 50,000 views. Now we can take it to 6 million with paid. So it's everybody like it's our creative team understanding, what type of content to make that's organically engaging and could be used in paid. So everything we make has the ability that we could at some point spark it if we wanted to. So the creative team, the paid team, has a massive pool of content to test from. They can constantly refresh creative. And so, the creative team will post a piece like of Rosemary and the red blush, the famous red blush now, and it does really well. And then it's the paid team's responsibility to take that and like press the button many times to make it skyrocket and go even more viral. And then we take those learnings, and we've made, oh my gosh, dozens of red blush videos since that first learning. And it's just, I think the thing about virality is it's always going to be short-lived, right? That's not going to ever be the consistent status quo. Virality is such a up and then it plateaus. But you might plateau a little higher than when you started, And I think to get that virality when it's hot, you have to, like I always say, push the button as many times as you can to make it go higher and higher. And that takes a really coordinated effort between the creative team, who can respond quickly and make content very quickly, and the paid team, who is like strategically using the ad dollars to make that piece of content get more eyeballs on it, get more conversions, reach whatever goal the client has.
Yeah, no, that's super important. I like the analogy of like it almost sounds like the creative team is sort of providing the tools, resources, growth levers for then the paid team to then strategize on based on constrained budgets and resources. So yeah, that's
exactly.
That's super amazing. I have one question. I feel like, a gap where I see is like, people are putting together these creative tests with a lot of this content and then paid is amplifying it. But I've heard a lot of sellers say they don't really know how to like validate those tests when you're amplifying successful or creative that has a high potential, right? For paid. Like what are some like verifications or measures of success that, paid puts in place for performance?
I think that, the measure of success always depends on the client's goal and the campaign objective. From an organic standpoint, when we post something, we're looking for like, did it get more views than, the average? If we're posting every single day and, you get an average views and then suddenly a creative has more above average views, we know that there's something there to pull from. But then it's, paid takes it. And it depends on what the campaign objective is. So, if we're running a traffic campaign, we're looking at the CTR. We're looking at, did that have a really high, did that surpass our benchmark? And then of course, a lower funnel, we're looking at, how low can we get the CPA? Did it have a high return? So I think it's really dependent. And then it's also just dependent on the brand's, goal. Is their goal to drive to D2C? Is their goal to drive to TikTok Shop? What is their metric of success? So I think we have a lot of different ways to like validate if a creative was successful. And then, TikTok has their benchmarks. We as an agency actually have slightly higher benchmarks for ourselves than TikTok. And then we try and have our client ideally surpass both TikTok's benchmarks and our own agency benchmarks, which are slightly higher. And that to us is a successful campaign or creative.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I feel like that's important to set those verifications, and it's nice that you guys have your benchmarks in place so you guys can forecast effectively, interpret results. That's super important. I want to go back to the communication between the creative team and the paid team, right? So let's say you guys launch, you've got your content done, it's been amplified. Is there any more communication that happens between the creative and the paid team again after that before we can ascend up the pyramid?
Literally every day. We talk every day. I mean, the Slack channel is always very busy. I think that's where, as an agency, we never, ever, ever set it and forget it. I set it and forget it is like not in our vocabulary. It's very hands-on. Everybody is very laser focused on their clients. But we also that's why we have, account managers, and they're only assigned a certain amount of beauty brands so that they can focus all their energy on those beauty brands. But every day they're talking back and forth. So they're talking when the content's being created, they're already talking. The paid media team is saying, these are the campaigns we want to run. This is how much budget. So they're already talking before the content's created. Then the content's created. They're talking about when is it going to be posted? When are we going to launch? And they're in lockstep together. And then as it's being posted, they're updating each other on how it's working and which sequential order of content should be posted. And then after the campaign is running, we're reporting every day internally of like, how is the campaign doing? And then afterwards, the paid team is collecting that information, giving it back not only to the client. It's important to give it to the client. It's more important to give it back to our creative team. So the client, they get their reporting on, a regular bi-weekly or however long cadence, but it's our creative team who's getting that reporting every single day, all the time. And I think that's really important because TikTok moves so fast. So you want all teams to be able to move fast and respond quickly.
Yeah, no, that's super important. The after communication part is so important. I feel like someone scales a successful creative and they think, all right, job's done. we're
Yeah.
we're ready to go. So yeah, no, that's super great. It's so interesting that the creative team receives more reports than the client from the.
Yes, our internal team for sure receives way more, like, yeah. And it actually, to the point where like we're moving so fast internally, to the point where sometimes we can't keep the client updated as quickly as we're moving. It's just so much communication. We do meet with the client weekly, so they're updated as much as quickly as we can. But I think oftentimes clients don't realize that on the back end, our teams are talking every single day. Just because they might get their weekly report, we're reporting every single day internally. And that's the most important thing, I think, to making a client successful. And it's going to be the same on the affiliate end of things. It's just set it and forget it is not, we're never going to turn a campaign on, walk away, come back and be like, oh, I hope it worked.
No, yeah, totally understand that. Yeah, and for any agencies or brands watching, like that internal communication is especially important, like Julia was saying. Otherwise, you can't get to that next step, right? Like, when are people ready to go from paid to that community and awareness part of the pyramid?
Well, I think the community and awareness is also built with that content on the base. And I think that is important for the paid. I think when it comes then to affiliate and influencer, I think you want influencers and affiliates to be excited about your brand, and to be excited about your brand, they want to see, they're also just beauty users, right? They want to see that you are doing cool stuff, making fun content, that you have a community that they want themselves and their followers to be a part of. So I think building your content and your paid strategy first ensures that when you get to, let's say, the affiliate portion, you're more likely to have an affiliate take interest in your brand, want to participate, want to be part of it, and not just open it and be like, I've never heard of this brand and put the phone down. So again, it goes back to the content makes everything else above it really efficient. And then I also think for affiliate, that sparking is so important in that, you want, it's the same thing with the content, right? I can give you the most beautiful content. It doesn't do anything unless you spark it. It's the same thing in the affiliate program. Like when you get that affiliate content, you also want to spark it or run a GMV Max campaign. So I like to see paid as almost like the center of a seesaw. And on one hand, you have the brand owned content, and on one hand, you have the affiliate content, but all of that is made with the purpose of leveraging it. And if you don't leverage either one, I just think it's a missed opportunity. So really knowing how to leverage that content through paid is where you see brands grow really rapidly.
Yeah, no, 100%. Everything is like a build up. You have to have the intent behind the content. Otherwise, paid isn't going to work. Otherwise, affiliate isn't going to work. And you've got to bring all the right elements before you start that journey with your affiliate and influencer. So
yeah,
super important. So you guys have everything lined up from a content and brand building perspective before you reach out to the affiliate, right? So the offer is crystal clear. The affiliate's probably heard about the brand a little bit and understands why they would work with it. I guess on the brand side, right? There's so many influencers and creators in the beauty space. I think it's the most saturated space, right?
Yeah.
Is there anything like specific to beauty when it comes to influencer selection and vetting that you could share with some of our viewers?
I think you want people who have like a trusted, I mean, it sounds obvious, but have a trusted audience, where you want people where their audience actually takes their recommendation and their word means something, right? And that they're actually, not just so if it comes down to just showcasing the product, right? Our UGC creators can do that and much cheaper. So when we're using influencers, we're not just using them to get a pretty piece of content. Again, our UGC creators can make equally good, if not better, type of application content. But that's why you want to use it to really select the people where they actually drive purchase, and it's a social proof, right? So the one thing that our UGC creators might be missing, because we're not using their name and likeness, is the social proof element. But, if it's just showing off what the product looks like, save your money, just get a UGC creator who's highly trained to do it. But with the influencers, I think what's really important is getting somebody where, they've curated the things that they like. And so when the audience gets a recommendation, they know that it's real and that this is something that's actually a product worth picking up.
Yeah, I like that point about like the curation and intention, and then also like having that like figure of authority relationship with their audience, right?
Yeah.
If you were to like spell out an ideal influencer, we could call her like influencer A, right? And you're scrolling through her TikTok profile. What are some things like you'd see that relate to that? Like, how can I spot signals of that relationship of authority with the follower?
I think like high engagement, views, obviously, but also comments, people, saying that they want to purchase, people engaging, people asking questions, people asking recommendation, I think is a really good. Bookmarks again.
Yeah, 100%. I like that you broke down engagement into comments and bookmarks. I think a lot of people see engagement rate, but different platforms bake engagement rate with different engagement metrics, right? Some people think engagement is only likes. Some people think it's likes and shares, like shares and bookmarks, but comments play a huge role. Bookmarks, like you said, play a huge role. So looking for those like sub engagement KPIs, right? And like the quality of them. That's super important. I do know we're running on the last couple minutes here, so I have a few like higher level questions, right? Where do you see like beauty and TikTok shop heading in the next couple months, year or so?
I think you're going to see a lot of beauty brands design products with the visual in mind because it's so visual. I think you're going to see affiliate marketing becoming kind of the new norm. And I think you're going to see a lot of IRL, like in real life experiences that then translate online. I think those would be the really big ones.
Interesting. And then as brands are like preparing for this like next wave of innovations, so like IRL, other kinds of beauty things, like what are some things that, they should be doing to prepare?
I think, again, consuming TikTok, biggest thing, be on TikTok and you'll know exactly where the trends are headed. You'll know exactly what to do next. I think that's the easiest way, is to just get really familiar with the beauty landscape and be a user yourself, and you will know where people are going.
Got it. And then last question, how do you think AI technology like Yuka or other AI technology for marketing can play a role to help brands succeed in beauty?
I love this. So I think like Yuka has been so great because I think there's this, we try and balance on our end, I guess. Affiliate is such a heavy lift, the amount of volume that you need. And just doing it by hand, manually with a person, maybe is not the most efficient way to go about it. It is quite difficult and requires a lot of people. On the other hand, you don't just, again, we don't set it and forget it. So you don't just want an AI tool and to just not have a human behind there creating connection. So I love Yuka because the way that we are using it is Yuka kind of serves the volume purpose and helps us reach affiliates at scale. But then we also have our team, being able to send briefs, to personalize messages, to make a personalized journey for the affiliate. And having that personal touch in combination with the AI, I think is the best strategy forward, because then you can actually build real relationships and build trust with the brand, with those affiliates, but also you have the assistance to do it at a much larger scale to reach more people, which at the end of the day is every brand's goal, is to reach as many people as possible. So I think Yuka is so helpful in that sense.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the kind words. Really, really means a lot. We do try to make sure Ami can, get our support, and a lot of other agencies too. And we really value our customers. So really, really thankful to hear those kind words. And thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. Looking forward to the next one for sure.
Yes, part two coming soon.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone.